All right, let's find out what's hot in the global economy now. We have Inijomekwa, and she's in yellow.
Yeah, I'm not in red.
Yeah,
but
so
I
might be a good sign.
I think so.
Right.
But I heard yourself and maybe talking about the fall, about 1% fall in the value of the Naira, which is very worrying, and being connected to the recent
threat by President Trump.
Trump, and a lot of people obviously have been reacting to that from different perspectives and all, and now we see it tipping it down. So people also connected it to the stock market, but Ladi, we know that the market, Nigeria stock market,
was negative last week. Before the weekend.
Exactly, before the pronouncement by President Trump. So I don't know if we should connect that also, but I mean, it's not a good thing for Nigeria. Obviously, you discussed that on the program. Foreign sentiment, foreign investor sentiment especially, and we see that the federal government and banks have a new target for diaspora remittances. I mean, what does all of this do? Obviously not a good one, and we do hope that diplomacy, talks, and action to deal with insecurity, because lives have really been lost. It's not just the Christians, it's also the Muslims that have suffered all of this in different parts of Nigeria. So, I mean, we really need to...
So it's a no-brainer. Solve your insecurity issues.
Yes. We don't need anybody to come.
You don't need anybody to tell you that.
Yes. All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's see what's happening in the global. So I guess I love Nigeria so much, so I had to talk about what's going on home first before we go abroad. But let's start from the UK, where the Chancellor, Reeves, has given a clearer indication that tax rises are coming in her autumn budget later on this month. She did this when she made a surprise speech from Downing Street this morning. Reeves addressed speculation around her fiscal plans and told the British public that her budget will focus on fairness and opportunity, but that there were pressures on the public finances that needed to be faced. Reeves said that the UK had considerably economic strength, but that years of economic mismanagement, she says, by the previous Conservative government had limited its progress and potential. And now global markets may be due for a reality check after this year's relentless rally, as Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley caution investors to brace for drawdown over the next 2 years. Equities worldwide have been soaring, hitting record highs this year, driven by AI-linked gains and expectations of rate cuts. Over the past month, key U.S. indexes have scaled new peaks. We've seen Japan's Nikkei 225 also, especially with the new Prime Minister. The South Korea's Kospi also hit a new high this year. China's Shanghai Composite, that has also notched its strongest level in a decade on easing U.S.-China tensions and a softer dollar. However, Solomon, that's the CEO there, notes that such reversals were a normal feature of long-term bull markets, noting that investment banks' standing advice to clients remain to stay invested and review portfolio allocation, not attempt to time markets. And Morgan Stanley CEO Ted Peake was speaking on the same panel and said that investors should welcome periodic pullbacks, calling them healthy developments rather than signs of crisis. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley point to Asia as a bright spot in the next few years on the back of recent developments, including trade pacts between the United States and China. Goldman expects global capital allocators to continue to be interested in China, adding that it remains one of the largest and most important economies in the world. Morgan Stanley remains bullish on Hong Kong, China, Japan, and India due to their unique growth stories. Japan's corporate governance reforms and India's infrastructure build-out were singled out as multi-year investment themes. And now Starbucks says that it would sell control of its operations in China to Boyu Capital in a deal that values the business at $4 billion, which is one of the largest divestments of a China unit by a global consumer company in recent years. The Seattle-based coffee chain says that the funds from the investment firm Boyu will help it jumpstart growth in the world's second-largest economy, where local rivals like Luckin and Coty now offer lattes for 9.9 yuan. That's less than a third of Starbucks prices. Under the deal, Boyu, whose founders include the grandson of former Chinese President Xi Jinping, will hold up to 60% of a new joint venture, and Starbucks will hold 40% and will continue to license the brand and intellectual property to the venture. And away from Starbucks, Nintendo raised its forecast for sales of the Switch 2 console in its current fiscal year as momentum for its new flagship console grows. The Japanese gaming giant said it now expects to sell 19 million units of the Switch in the fiscal year ending March 2026 versus a previous forecast of 15 million units. Here's how Nintendo did it in the fiscal second quarter ended September 30 versus LSEG estimate. Revenue 527.2 billion in Japanese yen versus 461.76. All right, the other stories, obviously, from the foreign scene. Stellantis also, they are recalling 320,000 Jeep Wrangler and Grand Cherokee vehicles in the U.S. because of a potential high-voltage battery failure that could pose fire risk. That's also another story coming from the United States, and more earnings also. But I guess we'll talk about that more during Business Incorporated. Ladi.